My name is Robert. I am a doctor, or at least I was. And on the 14th of March, 5 years ago, I died. A massive myocardial infarction. A widowmaker. My colleagues, my friends, worked on me for 12 minutes. 12 minutes without a pulse, without a breath. 12 minutes where I was gone from this world. What I saw in that time, what I was shown, changed everything I thought I knew about life, death, and sickness. He showed me a pandemic spreading across the globe, an illness so pervasive that it touches almost every single person. An illness for which there is no vaccine, no surgery, no medicine on any pharmacy shelf. And his warning, it should terrify all of us. Before that day, my life was defined by one word, doctor. It was my identity, my pride, my purpose. I was a cardiologist, one of the good ones. I could thread a catheter through a vessel the width of a piece of string. I could read an electrocardiogram like it was a love letter, finding the subtle betrayals of a failing heart. My life was a rhythm of beeps, charts, rounds, and the sterile, clean smell of the hospital. I had a wife, Sarah. 2 beautiful children, Leo and Mia. I loved them. Of course I loved them. I provided for them. I gave them a beautiful home, good schools, everything a father is supposed to give. But I gave them my leftovers. My passion, my energy, my focus, that all belonged to the hospital. My family got the tired, distracted man who came home late, whose mind was still on a difficult case or a new surgical technique. My real faith wasn't in God. My faith was in science, in what I could see, touch, measure, and fix. I believed in scalpels and statins. I believed in peer-reviewed studies and my own steady hands. Sure, I prayed. But it was a habit, like taking a daily aspirin for heart health. It was a perfunctory nod to a celestial CEO I hoped was running the universe with some vague benevolence. It wasn't a relationship. It was a routine. The day before I died, that routine was shattered by a single, quiet moment. I was sitting in my favorite armchair after dinner, my temple of decompression. My son, Leo, who was 8 at the time, ran up to me, his face glowing with pride. He was holding a piece of paper. On it, he had drawn our family. Stick figures, of course. But he'd taken such care. Mia had her bright red coat. Sarah had her curly hair. I had my stethoscope around my neck. "Look, Dad. It's us," he said, his voice full of hope. I glanced up from my phone for less than a second. I was reading a complex case file emailed to me by a colleague. "That's great, buddy. Really good," I said, my thumb already scrolling down the screen. I didn't really see it. I saw the screen. I saw the medical jargon. I saw my work. I didn't see the careful way he'd drawn the sun in the corner. I didn't see the hopeful, expectant look in his eyes. A look that slowly faded, replaced by a quiet disappointment that 8-year-olds are experts at hiding. He just mumbled, "Okay," and walked away. I felt a tiny, momentary pang of guilt, but it was quickly swallowed by the demands of the case file. I had no idea that in just a few hours, that little moment of dismissal, that simple act of choosing a screen over my son, would come back to haunt me with the force of a physical blow. I had no idea it would become the single greatest regret of my life. The next day was a Tuesday. I was at the hospital, leading morning rounds with a team of residents. We were outside room 304. I was explaining the nuances of a patient's atrial fibrillation. And then it happened. It wasn't a slow build. It was an explosion. A crushing, suffocating pressure slammed into the center of my chest. It felt like the universe had suddenly focused all its weight into one single point, right over my sternum. I, the cardiologist, knew the feeling intimately from textbooks and patient descriptions. The elephant. The elephant was sitting on my chest. The irony was so profound it was almost comical. Air vanished from my lungs. The world tilted violently. My knees buckled. I remember the clipboard scattering across the polished floor. I remember the faces of my residents, their professional composure dissolving into sheer panic. I saw a young doctor, a woman I was mentoring, her eyes wide with terror. I tried to speak, to tell them what to do, to tell them, get the atropine, get the crash cart. But no words came out. As my vision began to tunnel, as the world dissolved into a gray, blurry mess, my last conscious thought wasn't of a medical protocol. It wasn't of a scientific principle. It was just a name, a whisper in my mind. Sarah, and then everything went black. The pain vanished. The panic was gone. The shouting of my colleagues faded, as if someone was slowly turning down the volume on the world. First it was muffled, then it was a distant echo, then it was nothing. Silence. A perfect, peaceful, absolute silence. It wasn't a scary blackness. It was calm. It was rest. Then I felt a sensation. A gentle pull. A feeling of impossible lightness. I was floating. My perspective shifted. I was no longer on the floor. I was up high, near the fluorescent lights and the grimy ceiling tiles I'd never noticed before. I looked down, and I saw myself. My body was lying on the floor, surrounded by a frantic swarm of blue and white scrubs. My friends, my colleagues. I saw Dave, the head of the ER, doing chest compressions, his face a mask of grim determination. I saw them rip my shirt open. I saw the resident I was mentoring, crying in the corner, her hands over her mouth. They brought the crash cart. I heard the high-pitched whine as it charged. "Clear," someone shouted. I watched, with a strange sense of academic curiosity, as my own body arched violently off the floor. There was no pain, no fear. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace, a calm detachment that made no logical sense. My primary emotion wasn't for me. It was for them. I felt a deep, profound sadness for their panic, for their desperation. I wanted to float down and put a hand on Dave's shoulder and say, "It's okay. Don't worry. I'm fine." But I couldn't. I was just a silent observer to my own death. Then, the scene below began to change. It started to lose its solidity, its substance. The edges of the room began to fray, like an old piece of cloth. The colors started to bleed into one another. It was like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. The sharp, frantic sounds dissolved into a low, meaningless hum. The physical world was coming apart at the seams, dissolving like a dream you try desperately to hold on to as you wake. And I let it go. I turned from the fading chaos and let the gentle pull take me. The blackness returned, but it was different this time. It wasn't an absence of light. It felt like a presence. A comforting, velvety, living darkness that held me like a cradle. Then, in the distance, I saw a point of light. Just a pinprick at first. But it began to grow, expanding slowly and steadily. It wasn't a harsh, clinical light like the ones in my operating room. This was a warm, golden, liquid light. It felt alive. As it washed over me, I felt a peace so profound, so absolute, that it defies all human language. Every worry I'd ever had, every stress, every fear, every insecurity, it was all just gone, burned away by this beautiful, loving light. The darkness receded, and I found myself in a place. I wasn't standing on anything solid, yet I felt perfectly supported. It looked like a simple garden. There was grass, but it was a shade of green so vibrant and alive it seemed to hum with energy. There were trees with leaves that shimmered with their own internal light. The air itself felt like love. It was the only way I can describe it. Every breath I took in this place was a breath of pure, unconditional love. And then I saw him. He was standing by a simple, weathered wooden bench. He wasn't a king on a golden throne. He wasn't the ethereal, robed figure from old paintings. He was dressed in simple clothes. He looked strong, like a carpenter. I couldn't make out the fine details of his face at first, not because it was blurry, but because the light that emanated from him was so gentle and overwhelming. But then he turned his head and looked at me, and I saw his eyes. And I knew. In an instant, with a certainty that was more real than my own name, I knew I was looking into the face of Jesus. His eyes. I don't have the words for his eyes. They held all the stars in the universe. They held a love so pure, so personal, so directed at me, that it completely unmade me. In that single gaze, I was known. Every thought I'd ever had, every secret shame, every hidden pride, every moment of failure, and every small act of kindness, he saw it all. And he loved me anyway. He loved me not in spite of my flaws, but he loved all of me, the broken parts included. He didn't speak with his mouth. The words didn't travel through the air to my ears. They bloomed, fully formed, inside my mind, in my soul. The voice was a melody of pure grace. "Welcome, Robert. Be at peace." The sound of my own name in that voice was a physical force. The pride that had been the bedrock of my entire adult life, the identity of Dr. Robert, crumbled into dust. I didn't fall to my knees. I was lowered, as if by a gentle hand. And I wept. I have never wept like that in my life. It wasn't from sadness or fear. It was tears of pure, unadulterated relief. It was the weeping of a lost child who had finally, after a lifetime of wandering, found his way home. I was a mess of shame and gratitude, of unworthiness and overwhelming acceptance. I just knelt there, in that impossible garden, and let the tears wash away everything I thought I was. He let me stay like that for what felt like an eternity of grace. He let the peace soak into the deepest parts of my being. When my weeping finally subsided into a quiet awe, he spoke to my soul again. "There is something I need to show you," he said, his voice full of a gentle gravity. "A sickness of the heart that you, my beloved physician, could never heal with your hands." The garden around us didn't vanish. It became transparent, like a screen was being lowered over reality. And on that screen, I saw my life. But I saw it from a different perspective. I saw myself at the dinner table, my face illuminated by the cold blue light of my tablet as I read through medical journals. I saw my daughter, Mia, trying to tell me a story about her day at school, her voice getting smaller and smaller as she realized I wasn't really listening. I saw her face, a mirror of the same quiet disappointment I had seen on her brother's face. The vision shifted. I saw myself on the phone in my car, telling Leo the first couldn't make it to his soccer game. Again. "A work emergency, buddy. I'm so sorry," I'd said. But as I saw the memory play out, I felt the truth of it. It wasn't a life-or-death emergency. It was something that could have waited. I had chosen work. I had chosen my own importance over my son's. I was shown dozens of these moments, these tiny pinpricks of neglect and absence. They weren't presented with judgment or condemnation. In fact, what I felt from Jesus beside me was not anger, but a profound, shared sadness. I felt the cumulative ache of those moments. I felt the loneliness I had created in my own home. I felt the slow, silent starvation of the hearts I was supposed to be nurturing. Then, the vision pulled back. It zoomed out from my life, from my family, and I saw the whole world. I saw cities and towns, homes and cafes, parks and offices. And everywhere, I saw the same thing. I saw people sitting together, but utterly alone. Families on a couch, each person staring into a small, glowing rectangle in their hands. Friends at a restaurant, not speaking to each other, their attention captured by the universe in their pockets. I saw it on a spiritual level. I saw beautiful, shimmering golden threads of light that were meant to connect people to each other. A thread between a mother and child. A thread between a husband and wife. A thread between friends. But then I saw something else. There were dark, shadowy things, like leeches made of smoke and static. They were indistinct, without clear form, but they were everywhere. These leeches were latched onto the people. And they were feeding. They were feeding on the light of their attention. Every moment a person chose a screen over a human face, the leech got a little fatter, a little stronger. And as they fed, the beautiful golden threads of connection grew thin. They frayed. They weakened. And then, one by one, they snapped. I watched in horror as families became collections of isolated islands, sitting in the same room but worlds apart. Friendships became hollow, based on digital likes rather than shared presence. The world was becoming a vast archipelago of lonely people, desperately pretending they were connected. His voice filled my mind again, explaining what I was seeing. It was a voice filled with sorrow. "The enemy, the great thief, is clever," he said. "He does not need to make them into monsters. He does not need to fill them with rage or hate, not at first. He only needs to make them empty. This is the great forgetting, Robert. They are so busy, so distracted, so entertained, that they forget what is real. They forget their neighbor. They forget their family. And in the noise, they forget me." I saw a teenager in her bedroom, crying from loneliness, while her phone showed her 1,000 friends who didn't know her name. I saw a husband and wife lying in bed, back to back, the cold light of their phones the only thing illuminating the canyon between them. It is a silent theft of the soul, Jesus continued, his sadness a palpable weight. He steals their time, their focus, their purpose. He replaces deep, nourishing connection with shallow, counterfeit interaction. He gives them a constant stream of information, but no wisdom. He gives them endless entertainment, but no joy. He gives them a world in their hands, but leaves a hole in their hearts. This is the illness you see. It is a soul starvation, a deep, gnawing hollowness that they try to fill with more noise, more images, more distraction. But it only makes the emptiness grow. I died for a relationship, Robert. For a messy, beautiful, real connection. Not for a simulation. They are so addicted to the noise that they cannot hear me in the quiet. They are afraid of the silence, because in the silence, they would have to face their own emptiness. The vision faded, and it was just the two of us in the garden again. The weight of what I had seen was crushing. What do we do? I whispered, the words catching in my throat. Why? You must tell them to look up, he said, his voice now firm, a command wrapped in love. Tell them to look up from their screens and into the eyes of the people they love. Truly see them. Listen to them. Tell them to look up from their worries and anxieties and to see the sky I painted for them, to feel the sun I made for them. And tell them to look up from their emptiness and to find me. I am not far away. I am waiting in the quiet. I am waiting in the space between the distractions. Their smallest prayer, Robert, if it is real, if it comes from the heart, it shakes the foundations of darkness. The truth of his words settled into my soul. But with it came a new wave of emotion, despair. The thought of returning to that broken, distracted world was unbearable. Please, I begged him, the tears starting again, but this time from a place of desperation. Please don't send me back there. It's too hard. It's too painful. This is home. Let me stay with you. He looked at me, and that heartbreaking love in his eyes intensified. It was not a look of pity, but of profound understanding. Your work is not finished, my beloved physician, he said gently but firmly. You have spent your life healing physical hearts. Now you must help heal spiritual ones, starting with your own family. Your son is waiting for you to see his drawings. Your daughter is waiting for you to hear her stories. Your wife is waiting for her husband to come home. He placed a hand on my shoulder. It wasn't a physical hand, but I felt it. It was a transfer of warmth, of strength, of impossible love and courage. You must go back and be a light. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them I am real. Tell them I love them. But I can't do it alone, I pleaded. You will not be alone, he promised, his voice the most certain thing in all of creation. I will be with you, always. And with that promise echoing in my soul, he gave me a gentle push. It wasn't a shove. It was a release. And I was falling, tumbling backward, away from the light, away from the peace, away from home. The return was not a gentle awakening. It was a violent, brutal collision. I slammed back into my body with a jolt that felt like being in a car crash. Pain erupted everywhere. My chest was on fire. My head throbbed. My first breath was agony, a searing fire in lungs that had been still. The quiet peace of heaven was replaced by a cacophony of sound. The frantic beeping of monitors, the shouting of voices, the rattle of equipment. It was a physical assault on my senses. The gentle, loving light was gone, replaced by the harsh, blinding glare of the hospital fluorescents. A grief so deep it felt like a physical wound tore through me. I was homesick for a home I had only known for a few minutes. My eyes fluttered open. I saw Dave's face looming over me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Robert? Oh my God, Robert. Can you hear me? They told me later. 12 minutes. For 12 minutes, I had been clinically dead. No pulse, no respiration, no brain activity. They were seconds away from calling the time of death. They rushed me to the cath lab, then to the ICU. The test came back. The damage to my heart was significant, but nowhere near what it should have been after such a prolonged cardiac arrest. My brain scans were the real shocker. They were completely normal. No signs of oxygen deprivation. No damage. My own cardiologist, a brilliant man I had known and respected for 20 years, sat by my bedside, flipping through my chart with a look of utter bafflement. He finally looked at me, shook his head slowly, and said words I never thought I would hear from him. Robert, he said, Scientifically, you shouldn't be here. And you absolutely should not be this lucid. There's no medical explanation for this. It's a miracle. The first thing I asked for was my family. When Sarah came in, her face pale and stained with tears, I just took her hand. I couldn't speak at first. I just wept and held her hand, trying to pour all the apologies and regret and love I felt through my touch. When they finally let Leo and Mia in, I ignored the tubes and wires. I looked right past my own pain and saw my son. Leo, I said, my voice raspy. Your drawings, they are the most important things in the world to me. Will you bring them and show me every single one? The look of stunned, radiant joy on his face was the beginning of my healing. The man who died on that hospital floor was Dr. Robert. The man who came back was Robert. A husband, a father. My life transformed. I didn't go back to my old practice. I resigned. I took a part-time teaching position at the university. I'm home for dinner now, every night. My phone stays in a drawer when I'm with my family. We talk. We listen. The heavy, lonely blanket that had settled over my home has been lifted. The golden threads are being rewoven, stronger every day. So I'm telling you now what he sent me back to tell you. There is a deadly illness spreading through the world. It's a sickness of the soul, a quiet starvation. It's the emptiness that comes from chasing 1,000 distractions. It's the profound loneliness that comes from having 1,000 digital friends, but no one to truly see you. I am not telling you that your phone is evil or that technology is the enemy. It is a tool. But the thief is using that tool to perform a silent, deadly surgery on your soul. He is hollowing you out. He is stealing your connection to what is real, what is true, and what is eternal. He is making you empty. So I am begging you, with every fiber of my being. When this is over, make a choice. Choose to look up. Put your phone down and look into the eyes of someone you love. Ask them a question and listen, really listen, to their answer. Go outside. Take off your shoes and feel the grass under your feet. Look at the clouds. Feel the sun or the rain on your skin. And find a moment of silence. In that quiet, just whisper his name. He is there. He is real. He is waiting. And his love is the only true medicine. It is the only cure for the sickness that is silently killing us all.